My name is Greg Schaum. I'm the president of Excelsior Leader Sports, which is a baseball agency. I'm based out of Kansas City. I've been doing this for 8 years. Went to Schaum North High School and played baseball. We're here at 3-2 in Lenexa, and Billy, 3-2 baseball for me brings back so many memories. And I'm here with Billy Severns, who went to the University of Oklahoma and then played professionally with the Milwaukee Brewers, making it to AAA, and we're going to tell some great stories in Billy's career here at some point. But first, Billy has promised to kind of fancy me a little bit as I tell some stories about my time at 3-2 baseball. So to do that, Billy, I want to show you some pictures of my team here. This is my first year, Aeroplastics. I mean, look at those uniforms. We were, that thing stuck to your chest in the Kansas City heat. That AP right there. Right. That was a classic team. We made it to the championship my very first year. Moved on to Shawnee Kawasaki Honda. I was a walking billboard. We all were. I mean, the full address and phone numbers right on there for you. Awesome. And with our hats, the big styrofoam hats, we just went right over to flipping burgers at Smacks right afterwards with those uniforms right there. Did you have some classic uniforms back in your Little League days?
I mean, who did have a classic uniform?
Yeah, I mean, look at the great mustaches on the coaches there. That's vintage 1980s 3-2 right there. But I had the all-time, perhaps ugliest uniform. If 3-2 baseball was ever going to have an award for the ugliest uniform of all time. Now, ugly can be very beautiful sometimes too, and I found these uniforms to be San Diego Padres brown chic. We just didn't have the yellow here, but look at that. R. Wayne Thompson Orthodontics with a big tree right there. Oh, Roland Park Merchants. R. Wayne Thompson Orthodontics, another team. This is Roland Park Merchants. Look at those brown uniforms right there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the high socks with the little thin, stirrups there.
I think they're beautiful.
Pretty cool.
Really.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I tell you, the great thing about these teams, Billy, is the friendships that were made, the camaraderie. For me personally, my dad was a big baseball fan. My grandfather was a big baseball fan. I have pictures of me in these uniforms, and you flip over the picture, there's something on the back written by my grandfather giving me a batting tip or a fielding tip, and those are the type of memories I have. My dad, we had a nice backyard, would pitch me batting practice every day before a game. And in fact, one time I left my bats in my mom's car. So my dad had to pitch me batting practice. And I had a major league broken bat, Hubie Brooks broken bat that Tom Seaver broke at spring training. I had this bat. It was broken, had a little splinter on it, but I had to take batting practice. So my dad nailed a little nail into the bat and made me take batting practice with a bat that was probably as tall as I was, just so I can get batting practice in. Then we came out here to 3-2, and oftentimes the reward for 3-2 was a big league chew. Afterwards, you got maybe an icy. And of course the legendary burritos here. Billy, if you've never had a 3-2 burrito, you're missing out.
Okay.
I mean, just be careful though. That first bite, those beans will fall out of you, and they're about 190 degrees.
Right.
But I tell you what, Billy, it's worth the trip. So if you love baseball and you love burritos, coming out to 3-2 for me.
Right.
Every time I come here, I get nostalgic. I mean, I really do. I watch a lot of high school baseball, obviously. I love coming out here. Neil Rotowski, who's one of the great guys that runs 3-2, is a personal friend of mine, and I really did want to make sure I took this time to say that, when it comes to being a leader and a guy that runs a great team, I personally, in my life, can't think of a better leader presence in my life than Neil Rotowski. And Neil, I think I've told him this story before, but I was fortunate enough as a sophomore to play varsity baseball at Schaum North High School. Obviously, I couldn't drive. Neil was a year older than me. He took me under his wing. His parents were great. We would often go to his parents' house before we came out here because they lived on the way. We'd get a nice snack and we'd go out to the ballpark together. And for an upperclassman to take a younger guy with him, it means a lot to me. But also the way that Neil played the games, I think the same way I played the game. We weren't perhaps the best players on the team, but I challenge anybody to find someone that worked harder than either of us. We were usually the guys that were winning the races. We were usually the guys that were first to practice, last guy leaving practice. We lived and breathed baseball. We loved our teammates, and I'm so proud of what Neil's done with 3-2 baseball. I just think that this is one of the best Little League facilities in the United States. So, with that, that's my little spiel that you were forced to listen to. And now I think we've got to move on to the career of Billy Severns.
I don't mind that at all. I love it. I feel the same way.
Yeah.
About Neil and 3-2, and the experiences are great with your friends.
So tell me a little bit about your Little League experience. You grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
What was your Little League experience like? What was the league called, and where did they draw their players from?
Well, we only drew from our school. We only had a little league where we played the local elementary schools around. We didn't have anything like 3 and 2. So every year you would sign up for baseball, and I was a MacArthur Bear all my life, and then through 6th grade, and then played on a junior high team, and nothing like 3 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just the dads would maybe get off work at 5 o'clock
Yeah.
and coach us, and it was really the highlight of my life anyway, because all I ever wanted to do was play baseball.
Right.
But most of the time during the school year we would start playing after school. In the summer we played from 7 for all day long, and we called it the Sandlot, and I did anyway, and so we just played baseball all the time. We developed our skills probably more in our neighborhood.
Right.
And then once we got a uniform, we slept in it that night, and we got a hat. And
Was your uniform just a T-shirt with a logo on it, or
well, we had okay uniforms. I mean, it really was they buttoned up and things like that. They were probably more on the line of a flannel, type uniform. I have pictures of me where I'd bent the bill of my cap 2 or 3 times, and probably almost with the times, so.
That's interesting you say about the bill of the cap, because I know that when Neil and I played high school in Schaum North, it was real popular at that time to have your hat high so your hair could show.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a coach named George Salas, who was old school, that couldn't stand it, and he would want us to wear our hats low. Then, we got to the point where the guys would bend the brim of the bill, and now we have the flat bills.
Yeah.
But they're kind of different styles for everybody.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you said about you picked up your skill set with a lot of your neighborhood friends.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up near a bunch of kids. There's 2 kids in my neighborhood.
Right.
And if one of us had a buddy, we had enough for 2-on-2 baseball. And we'd go up to Schaum North we would freeze a 2-liter bottle of water all day long, all night long. We'd take that up to North, and we would close off right field. So we'd have a pitcher, we'd have an outfielder, and we'd have a hitter. And it's funny because you want to be able to hit to all fields, right? And we basically took away.
Right.
We'd work on pulling the ball because
Sure.
we didn't have enough players for right fielder.
Right.
But we would make plays. And when people ask me some of the best catches I ever made in my life, one of the best catches I ever made was playing this game at Schaum North with my 2 buddies and whatever friend we had over.
Right.
And I think that's something that in today's game, one thing that kind of bothers me when I watch some elite tournaments in Atlanta and all over the country. It's showcase baseball now. Everybody comes up running and gunning, ground ball up the middle. Even if you don't have a throw, guys come up running and wanting to chuck the ball as hard as they can. The last time that I saw an outfielder turn and find the ball and run to a ball was back when we played. I don't see kids doing that anymore. And I think that what you're talking about, practice, is so important. Practice with your buddies, practice with your dads. These kids travel around so much anymore, they don't practice like you and I did. And I think that's sad, because I think, when we watch the greats like Derek Jeter, and Derek Jeter has that play in the hole, and he turns and throws it. I guarantee you that wasn't picked up in a game. That was picked up in his basement playing ground ball baseball with his buddy, or in his backyard, and working on plays like that where you have an opportunity to slow the game down a little bit and learn what your body can do. That doesn't happen often in the game, I don't think, does it?
Well, definitely not the way we used to do it. I mean, I think most of the guys that love the game figure out a way to if you love the game, I know the way I did, and obviously the way you did, you always had a ball in your glove with you. And if you had to throw the ball up in the air by yourself, or if you had to throw it off your garage door, or whatever you had to find to create something, you could do. And I think that definitely doesn't happen as much now.
Yeah.
And I do know that the kids are traveling a lot and doing a lot of that, and there's probably not nearly as much of that that just kind of freewheel type stuff that you talk about the backhand and the backhands and the things like that, and this and this and this that you learn after a repetition of 5-6 hours of baseball a day with your friends, and then you start start trying and make them miss balls, and then all of a sudden you're learning and you're developing, and because your buddies, you just did it over and over again, you begin to, make the plays that you normally wouldn't see, except in a situation where it was just all day long.
I grew up on Foster, which is right by Schaum North, and my parents, I'm fortunate that they still live there. And we had a little hill, and the side wall of my parents' house had to be repainted after I got to high school, because I had so many tennis ball and racquetball marks on that house. But yeah, I mean, and I would just work on sliding, I loved the game so much that any moment I had to play ball, I wanted to do. So, going into higd school, where'd you go high school in Tulsa?
I went to high school at Tulsa Hale High School.
Okay.
And I actually, my career started much slower than most guys. I had a paper out. I got up every morning from 7th to 12th grade. I had a paper out at 4 o'clock every morning, and 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I would get up and throw about 120 papers a day. So that's where my arm kind of developed. I broke 37 windows in 5 years. Canceled my parents' homeowners insurance. And I would ride this old clunker Schwinn bicycle that had 120 papers in it that I'd folded, and then I would fire them, and I would drive down the middle of the street and hit porches. I could hit porches, I could put your paper in your living room if
So
you
that was
wanted
your
to.
weighted ball, pre-conditioned throwing right there.
Well, yeah,
the heavier, I'm a big weighted ball guy. So I mean, you're throwing a paper, a wet paper sometimes.
Yeah, wet papers would really go through.
That's where I got you, because you're not a weighted ball guy. I just got you right there.
I'm not a weighted ball guy.
No, you threw the paper. That's a heavy thing right there.
I'm not a weighted ball guy anyway.
We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later, but anyway. But the papers, at times, the Sunday papers that weighed 200 that had 200 pages in them, they would really hit something hard.
Yeah.
So I broke, my only picture window I broke was with the Sunday morning paper, and rattled a whole foundation of a house, and the guy was so mad. The guy was scared. I was scared.
Yeah.
But it picked I think it picked the foundation up off the house, and it hit that window like that, and it didn't come apart. I mean, it was in a million pieces, but it was safety glass.
Yeah.
So he backed after me. He got in his car, fired it up in a Volkswagen. I'll never forget this car coming after me. But he was so ticked that he backed down the street, probably 50 miles an hour.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So we had a bit of a meeting, and me being the diplomat that I was, I said, hey, I didn't even think it broke. And that led a tirade. And so anyway, that was a very expensive window.
Oh sure.
But I threw across my body. I threw off my bike. I could throw backhand this way. I could throw that way. So I never did step and throw.
Yeah.
The way everybody insists that everybody does. And finally, at my senior year at Oklahoma University, the coaches said, we're not going to try and make you step where you're throwing because you don't need to. So I've always said, if a kid can throw somebody out, it doesn't have to do it perfectly, then just what's wrong with that? So
on a scouting scale, did you have a plus arm, do you think, or you just had a good arm, or what do you think what your calling card was on defense?
Well, probably my arm was
Okay.
I didn't make many errors, but I threw out a lot of people, and even all the way through AAA, and
accurate arm.
even as I moved all the way up to as far as you could go without being a regular major league player, my arm really kind of kept me in the game. I played right field a lot and center, and most of the errors that I would make were throwing, because I was trying to throw the guy to third, which usually either hit him in the head from right field and went into the stands or something. But in college, I loved to throw people out.
Right.
That was my favorite thing to do. So, anyways.
So you go
Throwing was good.
You go from Tulsa to University of Oklahoma. Obviously, Oklahoma State's close by as well. What brought you to Oklahoma? What other schools were talking to you, and when did you make the decision to attend University of Oklahoma?
Well, I never was the guy that everybody wanted. I was actually cut from my high school team my sophomore year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't know there were going to be 100 and some odd guys out for baseball. It was a big program. It was a 6A school called Tulsa Hale, and I got cut the first day out. So my career didn't take off the way.
Why do you think you were cut that first day out?
I might have been a little chubby.
Chubby.
From eating donuts on my paper route.
Yeah.
I had a pretty good day. I thought I had done pretty well. But the other thing is I didn't play football.
Okay.
And because of my paper route.
Okay.
So nobody knew me. And the day after I was cut, which was the first day, the high school coach wanted to see me, and he said, nobody knew you. They didn't know who you were. He wanted to see me, and he said a couple things. He goes, first of all, the numbers were really stacked against you because nobody knew you.
Right.
So we were all asking each other, who is this kid? Because look at him throw. And I felt like I'd hit okay, but apparently I hadn't run as fast.
Yeah.
You know, I might have been running faster than I thought, or not running as fast as I thought I was. But but he said, I don't want you to quit. He goes, I want you to find a place to play and play next year. I wound up having to play for kids a year younger than me.
Right.
That summer, my dad found a team for me to play on. And but every morning on my paper route with the highway patrol dispatcher where I'd fold my papers, he would buy the donuts if I'd go get them. And that's a good deal.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would eat the donuts.
Yeah.
So, but my coach told me, he said, first of all, the next day I met with him, he said, thank you for coming to talk to me. He said, I'm glad you wanted to deal with this. And I wound up talking to him 6 years ago and talked at his funeral 2 years later. And I said the next day he said, do you remember what I said to you? And I said, no, was I still crying? Because I'd been cut. And he said, no, but you looked like you had a rough night probably. He said, I'm just telling you that if you'd get in a little better shape and not give up and not quit, I think you can make the team next year. So I didn't even make a high school team till my junior year.
So the lessons I take away from this, and I try to preach lessons as best as I possibly can, is one, don't ever not allow yourself to get back up.
Right.
But more importantly, what I find so often, especially in the baseball community, is we don't communicate enough. It is okay to go ask why, and do it in a way that you're not, being a jerk.
Exactly.
And I think having a young person, be able to do that. Oftentimes our parents do that for us. But if you're young enough and mature enough to handle that, I think your takeaway from that is priceless. And certainly for you, it was, as you spoke at this coach's funeral, like you said. But I always tell young athletes, don't let things fester. Don't let something build into something it's not. Deal with it, and you might get something out of it. You might not like what they say, but if you can't learn from that, then maybe you're in the wrong sport.
Well, he gave me hope, which I always like to tell the coaches, if you're going to cut a kid, take the time, take a couple minutes to just give him some hope, tell him what he could work on, maybe come back. And so basically, I took that as, okay, get in a little bit better shape. So the next morning I went down to pick up my papers and I told the dispatcher, I said, guess what, Charlie, you just got a raise. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I got to quit eating these donuts. And so I said, the high school coach told me that if I would quit eating donuts and get in better shape, he thinks I can make the team next year. So when I speak to parents groups or whatever, I tell them, I said, so I went from like 12 donuts a day to maybe like 10 to 8. You got to work, you just can't go cold turkey. So I knew I had
you got to slowly go.
I knew I had a year, and so really, I really do believe that God gave me the desires of my heart, because that next day, the football coach asked me to be the manager of the football team, which is, everybody knows, is the lowest position in sports. And so I was the manager of the football team, which got me into 6th-hour PE. Back then, you had to do that. And one day, the baseball coach saw me throwing a football at halftime. And he said, who is that kid throwing that football that far? Because I could throw it pretty far. Again, I could throw, And so the next year I went out, I was in a lot better shape. And I made the team. And I made second team All-City that year, which I thought, I was throwing papers and my name was in it, I mean, wow, And then the next year I made All-State.
At that point, if I come back to you at 17 years old and say you're going to make it to the last cut in Major League Spring Training and play AAA baseball, what would you have told me?
I just said, I'm not going to get cut from anything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
you know. It was, I mean, that was just the way I thought. I always thought, it was kind of funny when we got to college, you know, we had to pick a major, you know, and I was going, I'm here to play baseball.
Right.
You know, and I am really glad that I listened and did get my degree. I always say that your degree is a very good thing to have, you know, because you're going to need your degree,
Right.
you know. But I wasn't. I was just always wanted to play, and I knew I wanted to play, and that's what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to do anything else. So I never thought, if I wouldn't have torn the ligaments in my ankle, I would have continued to play.
Right.
But anyway, that's another story. But so I get to high school, and we get to the state finals. We get beat in the state finals by a team we had beaten 3 times during the year. And then you said to go on and talk about how'd you get to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I was not a heavily sought after guy, but matter of fact, my first scholarship offer was to Bacone College in Bacone in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I got a letter from Nigel King, the coach, and he said, "Dear Billy, I know you're going to probably get some better offers than this, but let me put Bacone out there first." He goes, "Every Sunday afternoon, Mrs. King makes a big old pan of fried chicken, and you're more than welcome to come have dinner with us every Sunday afternoon, you know. But we want you to come play at Bacone." And I called him back and I said, "Mr. King, I may not get a better offer than that." That's a pretty good
Your
offer.
scholarship was fried chicken.
So anyway, that's the Okie probably
yeah,
in me.
Yeah.
I grew up always wanting to play at Tulsa University.
Okay.
They had gone to the College World Series. They were the powerhouse. And Gene Shell, the coach there, didn't want me to go until I had gone to junior college for a couple of years. He wanted me to go play center field at some school and then play my junior and senior year at Tulsa.
Right.
And I said, "Well, what am I going to?" I don't necessarily. You know, I want to play at Tulsa University.
Right.
I don't want to play anywhere else.
Right.
I grew up wanted to be Tulsa, so he didn't offer me a scholarship, and then Oklahoma State offered me a full scholarship, and Oklahoma had told me they wanted me, but had not offered me a full scholarship.
Okay.
So Oklahoma State sent me a full scholarship, and it was sitting on the bar at our house, and I needed a full scholarship to go to college. And so I called Coach Seymour at Oklahoma, and I said, "Coach, I'm going to go to Oklahoma State." And he said, "Why? I thought you were coming here." And I said, "Well, they've offered me a full scholarship, and you haven't. And I think I need one." And he goes, "Well, I thought you knew you had a full scholarship." And I said, "Well, I'm an idiot. I didn't know that. But I know I have one sitting on the bar here." You know?
I made that call. Once again, communicating directly. Yeah.
Communicate. So he said, "Well, would you like to come to Norman?" And I said, "Where is it?" You know, I didn't know where Norman was. I didn't know they had a football. I didn't care. I wanted to play at Tulsa University. And I hope you don't think these stories are off track. I was
No,
trying to
not at
follow
all.
the
This
way
is
that you
outstanding.
said
This
to
is
go.
outstanding, yeah.
So anyway, so he said, "Well, do you play golf? Would you like to come to Norman?" And I said, "Well, I don't even know where it is."
Yeah.
And I said, "My mom and dad work." So he goes, "Well, what if somebody picked you up tomorrow morning and brings you to Norman?" And I said, "Well, that would be fine." And so a guy pulled up to me to my house in a El Dorado Cadillac, and he had a phone in his car, 1971. You know, he said, "You can call your mom if you want or whatever." And I thought, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
He goes, "Do you play golf?" And I said, "Well, I've played before." And so we went down and we played golf, and I got to eat all the cheeseburgers I wanted, and we played golf and rode in a cart, which I had never done. And I went home with a full scholarship that night and signed with Oklahoma.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the next night.
Okay, well, we're going to take a little bit of break. When
Yeah.
we come back, we're going to
Sure.
talk about some of your teammates in Oklahoma that made it to the major leagues.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about your time at OU before moving on to the Milwaukee Brewers.
Sure.